welcome to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show, where we seek real answers to life's problems. I'm Dr. Tim Jennings, here with Susan Collenberg.
Hello, and today we are going to be discussing how to find a healthy partner. But before we get into our topic, we have a question from our listener. Nelson writes, what is it to love someone as yourself? How do we love ourselves without being self-centered? Dr. Jennings?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I think people get confused between being selfish and having loving health care and self-maintenance. And so the loving your neighbor as yourself, there's this principle. And I actually learned it when I learned how to run a psychiatric unit. And the first principle of running a psychiatric unit is staff safety, not patient safety. Because if the staff are not safe, then no patients are safe and no care gets given.
Okay.
And that's the principle here. In order to actually be a person who can care for anyone in any capacity, parent caring for a child, doctor caring for a patient, a community caring for each other, farmer feeding people, whatever capacity you're in to minister to others, you have to maintain your health, your well-being, your fitness, because if you become compromised, if you become sick, if you become an invalid, then you aren't able to serve and be a caregiver to anyone else. So love your neighbor as yourself means that you always starts with self-care. Okay. And self-care would be establishing those objective realities and qualities that are necessary to health. That would be sleep every night, proper nutrition, physical exercise, mental rest and recreation and relaxation where you have time to decompress from the stressors of the world and rejuvenate. Even Jesus Christ took time away from the masses to sleep, to eat, to rest, to rejuvenate, to pray, to meditate. And so we have to take time to keep ourselves in the best fitness possible before we're really enabled and capable of going out and ministering or loving other people. And so that's what that really means.
Okay, so there can be a place where that crosses the line into selfishness, but the principle is to take good care of yourself so that you can give to others.
Sure. And so one of the tricks, I think, of if you believe in a devil, to get good-hearted people to not be able to serve is to get them to not be able to say no to good requests. Will you be on our church board? Will you be on our school board? Will you work in our community kitchen? Will you do this? Will you do that? And people feel like, well, if I say no, I'm being selfish. And so they say yes to everything to the point of exhaustion, and then they can't help anybody. So this is one of the big deceptions. And so love your neighbor as yourself means you have to establish those healthy reality-based boundaries to maintain your well-being. That's not selfish. It's actually other-centered because you want to keep yourself in a condition to help other people.
Okay, so it's kind of going back to those overall design principles.
Yes.
To exercise your reason.
Yes.
The things you can do and the things that God is leading you
and
to
so
do.
we talked about design law last time, went through a whole bunch of them.
Right.
One of them was we didn't mention, I'll mention it here in this context, is the law of restoration.
Okay.
The law of restoration is for a finite being who has finite resources. After you expend the resource, it requires you to rest and recover in order to have more resource to expend. So if you expend energy and you're a football player, you're a pitcher in the major leagues, and you pitch a no-hitter, you have to rest and recover before you can pitch again. Okay, if you expend mental energy, you need time to rest and recover before you have more mental energy to expend. It's the law of restoration. If you don't rest, you will burn out and exhaust yourself and not be able to continue on. So there is a period that you have to schedule into your life time, not just for sleep rest, for the physiological rest, but a mental, psychological rest needs to be built into your schedule.
Okay, great. Today's topic is on how to find a healthy life partner. How do we find healthy life partners?
The first principle to finding a healthy life partner or to have a healthy relationship is that healthy relationships require healthy people.
Okay.
And so the first step in finding a healthy life partner is for yourself to be a healthy person. Because if you yourself are not mature, healthy, have good coping strategies and so forth, then no matter who you get in a relationship with, it won't be healthy. And not only that, if you are not mature, if you're not healthy, your lack of maturity, your lack of healthy discernment, decision-making, coping, relating will alter who you find attractive. And you won't actually be attracted to the healthy people.
Okay.
You'll be attracted to the unhealthy people.
Right.
And so the first step in finding a healthy partner is taking time to deal with your own self first.
Okay.
Address your own concerns, your own issues. So if you have trauma issues, You need to resolve or work through, at least to a reasonable extent, so that those trauma issues don't come in and infect or affect the relationship. For instance, I have some individual patients who were molested as kids, and they cringe at the thought of their marriage partner having physical intimacy with them. That would negatively affect a relationship.
Right.
That needs to be worked through, where they would feel comfortable in a relationship with their life partner in that way. People who have unresolved addiction issues. If you have you're not in recovery, okay? You're not going to have a healthy relationship if you've got an addiction and you're not in recovery. You need to get into recovery before you can actually enter into a healthy relationship. So there's lots of things people need to do, taking an inventory of themselves and coming to know themselves well. But let's say that a person has dealt with in a reasonable way. They're reasonably healthy. I mean, nobody's perfectly healthy, but they're a reasonably healthy, mature person. They don't have any of these issues. They've resolved that stuff. Then what's the next thing? They need to know themselves well.
Okay.
Because knowing yourself well allows you to then identify the attributes that will match well with you in another. If you don't know yourself well, then you'll end up going off of just kind of a gut, and that will often not be the right answer.
Right. What's the most important attribute, or what's the most important thing that you should look for in a life partner?
So that's an interesting question, because I guess the most important place to look overall would be in the quality of their character and their maturity level.
Okay.
And the one element that is necessary for genuinely healthy marriage relationships to function is that both partners must have the ability and come to love the other more than self. If you don't love the other more than self, if you love self more than the other, you will eventually hurt the other, sacrifice the other to protect self.
Okay.
And those relationships end up very conflictual and dysfunctional, and there's lots of problems that happen in there. So if you're looking for someone who's qualified to be with you, one non-negotiable quality is that they really must come to love you more than self. If they can't love you more than themselves, then they're not mature enough to be in a really healthy relationship, no matter what other attributes they have. They also must like you for who you are. If they don't like you for who you are,
Right.
okay, and what does that mean? Well, they like you if only. If only you would do this. If only you would do that. If you could just change this. If you would give that up. If you would convert to this religion. If you would stop believing in that God. If you would, if you make all these changes, then I can like you.
Right.
But I don't like you the way you are. See, if the true person that's qualified for you, whoever that real person is, will like you for who you are. They will.
Right.
And you don't have to be. And this is really important, because the only way you get to know that is by just being yourself in dating and relationships. Many people, instead of just being themselves because they want to be liked, they try to evaluate what the other person wants, and they try to be that for the other person.
Right. And so they put on the facade, and so the relationship is based on basically a lie, and then it kind of can grow and get worse from that point on.
Right.
Because there's a lot of hidden things. So for a Christian person or somebody who believes in prayer and in God, is there, we can pray that God will bring the right person to us, right?
We can.
Oh, okay. And so can we be praying for the wrong thing?
Yeah. So, yes. The praying for help, God bring me the right person, God help me find the right person, this type of prayer is a very self-focused prayer. Generally, it's healthier and what I've found more effective for people to begin praying, Lord, help me become the right person you would have me be for whomever that person is that will be right for me when I meet them.
Okay.
Rather than helping me find that person, help me become that person.
Okay, so it's not as self-serving, it's God help me to be a better person.
Help me grow up, help me to address the issues in me, help me to resolve the stuff so I will be ready to meet that person whenever that time comes.
Okay.
It's a completely different focus.
Right. A lot of times we like to keep the focus on us and
And
God give to me instead of God help me to give to somebody else.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
yeah.
great. So what about God designed marriage for human beings? Is that correct? And should every person get married? So
God designed marriage. My understanding is God did design marriage, and the purpose of marriage is so that you can actually enter into a genuine love experience where you have someone that you can pour your love into and give and to make their life better, and you receive that love coming back to you freely. And this is and the science actually shows when you're in that type of relationship, it's the healthiest for you. Your creativity expands, your well-being expands. You have less illness. You live longer. You handle stress better. Everything everything's better when you're in that type of loving, other-centered relationship. The question you asked, though, was because God designed marriage for us, should therefore everyone be married?
Right.
That's what I think you were trying to
Yes.
ask. And the answer is not in the world in which we live. Not everyone is actually suited for marriage. There are some people, because of various differences in their unique person, that they actually function better as a single person, as alone. So no, I don't think everyone in this world today is suited for marriage. Some people are better and function better as single people.
Well, okay, so what if you find yourself in a marriage, but really you're suited to be single? What happens then?
Yeah, then you're going to have some work to do because you're going to have some compromises to make and you have some difficulties to deal with. And you're going to have to, if you're in that marriage and it's not abusive, it's not exploitive, you just really realize I would have rather stayed single, you're going to have to figure out a way to make that work, I think, because you've made some commitments and you made some promises. And if that person is treating you with maturity, respect, kindness, and so forth, you still have some obligations there to fulfill in that relationship, even if you would have preferred not to marry.
I think sometimes these days that divorce is very easy road to walk down. And so if you find yourself in some bad situations, if there's not abuse going on, but you just kind of want to move on, that's when we need to stop.
So your question
and
is
say,
already murky. It needs to be better
Okay.
defined because you said find yourself in bad situations.
Right.
Okay, that's a completely term that we cannot respond to. You have to be more precise than that. What
Okay.
does bad mean? Well, bad means because somebody had the flu and that was really bad.
Okay, well, what if you're just in an unhealthy relationship where there is no respect?
Unhealthy is
Yeah,
different, okay?
Okay.
Well, see, unhealthy is different. If
Okay.
it's unhealthy, then it's destructive. And if it's destructive and injurious, it has to be resolved. And so it's either you bring principles to bear to bring healing and resolve the unhealthy so it becomes healthy, or you must extricate yourself from it. I mean, it's black and white. It's not a murky decision then if it's objectively destructive and harmful and injurious, okay? That's what unhealthy is. Okay? So, but you don't just because you recognize, hey, this is unhealthy, oh, it's unhealthy, whoop, out of here. No, it's unhealthy. We need to then intervene to bring measures to make it healthy, resolve the unhealthy things, if it's possible. If you brought those measures to bear and the partner you're working with is resistant, objectional, obstinate, will not bring healthy measures in response, and it only continues to dysfunction, that is when you then have to say, in governance of self, I cannot persist and continue in a relationship that's destructive to both of us.
Okay. All right. So, what about attraction? Where does attraction come in with finding a healthy life partner?
Well, I think it's a good question for us to bring up after we go to our break. We need to take a break, and when we come back
great.
from break, I think we'll pick up the question on where the attraction piece fits in.
Okay, sounds great.
Hello, I'm Dr. Tim Jennings with your Mental Health Minute. In our busy society, it's all too easy to grab meals at the nearest fast food restaurant. But if you're feeling tired, run down, exhausted, and depressed, consider changing what you eat. Recent research of almost 9,000 adults has documented that those who ate fast food, junk food such as hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza, croissants, donuts, and muffins, had a 40% higher rate of depression than those who did not. Any amount of junk food increased the rate of depression, but there was a linear dose-dependent curve, meaning the more junk food eaten, the higher the rate of depression. Junk food is highly inflammatory food, high in oxidative saturated fats and devoid of micronutrients. Brain-healthy foods include fruits, whole nuts, omega-3 fatty acids, fish oils, and green leafy vegetables. To be smart requires a healthy brain, so be smart, chunk the junk.
To learn more about mental health, visit comeandreason.com.
In The God-Shaped Brain, Dr. Jennings reveals how changing our view of God changes our brain. In this book, you will discover how beliefs rewire the brain, how different views of God can alter both physical and mental health, how childhood experiences alter brain structure, and actions you can take to experience healing of brain, body, and relationships here and now. The God-Shaped Brain is a genuine breakthrough in understanding the human condition. Get your copy today wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show, and we're going to get to the question about attraction in just a minute. But Dr. Jennings, could you please describe the methodology of dating that will increase the likelihood of finding the right life partner?
Yeah, so I have a lot of people that come see me and they struggle with this question. And so I put some scenarios to them that help them kind of clarify what they're actually doing here. I say, I want you to imagine that your father owns a Fortune 500 company and they need to have a new vice president of sales, and they've asked you to interview candidates and recommend the top 3. Mm-hmm. I said, what would you make your recommendations upon? After interviewing, what would be the how you would select? And they go, well, based on their credentials, based on their qualifications, based on their experience and history. I go, so it wouldn't be basically how they made you feel in the interview.
Okay, right.
Okay. You say, so what's more important to you, the vice president at your dad's company, or your life partner? Which is actually more important to your life?
It's got to be your life partner.
Your life partner.
Yes.
I said, so do you have a list of qualifications that a life partner must possess, non-negotiable, that if they're missing one of them, any one of them disqualifies them from being your life partner? Do you have that list? No, nobody has that list.
Okay.
Okay. But this is what I tell them, this is how you have to start thinking, because everybody actually has a list, but most people never actually consciously identify the list. There are objective qualities that people will possess or not that will or will not make someone compatible for each one of us. And it's important for us, if we want to increase the likelihood of finding the compatible partner, to identify those non-negotiables. And when I say non-negotiables, the ones, again, that if they have it or don't, it disqualifies them. So for me, I'll just give you a simple one I had on my list, was a non-smoker. If they were a smoker, I could not live with them.
Okay.
And so, and what happens if I were to marry somebody that was a smoker, because that was a non-negotiable for me, the first thing I would begin doing in the marriage is begin working on them to get them to quit.
Right.
Because I can't accept the smoking.
Right.
And if they are not in agreement and they don't want to quit, but they feel that pressure from me, they won't feel accepted. They won't feel really valued for who they are. There's something inadequate with them. They don't measure up. So that will cause them to feel devalued in the relationship. If they quit, but they don't agree with the quitting, but they quit just to keep me happy, it builds in resentment and hostility in the relationship. The whole relationship will begin to fracture based on one little thing, smoking or not smoking, because I couldn't accept that. So I needed to identify, that's a simple one, non-smokers. If I meet somebody and she's brilliant, attractive, intelligent, but she pulls out a cigarette, boom, I don't even waste any time. Don't even spend a minute there because she's incompatible. Okay? And so as you make this list, some of these things on the list will be easily identifiable without her even having to talk to the person. Like she's lit up a cigarette, I don't need to talk to her.
Right.
Okay? Others, though, you may not know until you spend time with them. And so the things that go on your list, you need to identify some if you can, like the objective one like that. But others, here's one that goes on everybody's list. In order for somebody to be qualified to be your life partner, they must genuinely like you for who you are. We talked about that a little while ago. If they don't like you for who you are, they're not qualified.
Right.
Okay, and the only way you know that is to be yourself when dating. So you never fear someone not liking you for who you are. If you're in a dating circumstance and somebody sends messages to you in some way that you can tell they really don't like you and the way you are, they want to change you, you don't get your feelings hurt. You say in your head at least, maybe out loud you'll sometimes, but you say, thank you for letting me know you're not qualified to be with me.
There you go.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this is what you do. And you go down your list and other things people need to look at in themselves. Children or not children. Some people, it doesn't matter. Other people, it absolutely matters.
Right.
And they need to ask that question of themselves. Religion. Some people, it doesn't matter. Some people, it absolutely matters.
Right.
Okay? And they need to go down their list and find these non-negotiable elements. Sometimes there are physical elements that people may or may not even consciously realize that if people don't possess those physical elements, they're really not happy with them. And they need to identify those if they can. And then in the dating process, dating is never the process of trying to get the other person to like you. Never.
Okay.
Dating is the process of reconnaissance to evaluate whether the other person possesses the qualifications to be qualified to be with you. That's what dating is.
Okay.
And you never share your list. You don't tell people what's on your list.
Right.
You just go out, you spend time with them, you observe and you watch. And let's say you have on your list, and I would recommend you put on your list, I want somebody of integrity and honesty.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
And so you're out, and that's a good one to put on your list. And you're out with them, and somebody hands them an extra $5 at the cash register, and they come out in the park like, hey, they gave me $5 extra. Watch it. Do they go, oh, cool, stick it in their pocket? Or do they walk back in and say, hey, those $5 not for me? If they stick it in their pocket, do you go, well, they've never stolen from me?
So it's okay.
Or do you go, wait, it doesn't matter if they've stolen from me. They're showing me that they're not a person of honesty and integrity.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It's not just how they treat you.
Right.
Okay, if they answer the phone and somebody says, "Hey, what you doing?" and they don't speak truthfully, they make up stories and evade honest answers. Do you say, "Well, they've never lied to me," or do you say it's only a matter of time till they do lie to me?
Right.
They're not qualified.
Goes to their
Move
character.
on.
Yes.
Okay. This is how you use this list.
Okay, so that's the methodology.
That's the methodology
that you go through. Okay, so where is attraction
Okay,
come
so this is
into
the attraction
methodology?
piece. So let's say
Okay.
this is an important one.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say you've got your list and you're going down your list. Yes, they don't smoke. Yep, they got the same religious beliefs as me. Yep, the same place on kids. Oh, yeah, they really do like me. I know they like me for who I am, and they're honest, and their integrity.
Right.
But when I think about giving them a kiss, it would feel like kissing my grandmother or grandfather, whatever the case may be. They're not qualified.
Okay.
They are not qualified to be your life partner. In order to be qualified to be your life partner, there needs to be some chemistry of attraction built in. And if there's not, there's some sense of it, they're not qualified. But if you meet somebody and has that attraction, oh man, they spark you. Oh my goodness, they've got that attraction. They're out on parole for, I mean, they're lying and cheating. They're running a meth lab in their house right now.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They're not qualified.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So they have to have the attraction piece. All the attraction piece means, because you can usually check that one off really quick.
Right.
All it means is they can then get the rest of the interview.
So
doesn't mean they're qualified.
Right. So what if you get pressure from family or from your church members that are saying, well, shouldn't look at the superficial. Focus on the character.
Right. So I hear this a lot. Hey, you're just being you're looking for the physical. You need to look at the character. And what you need to do is you need to recognize that you have your own individuality, your own judgment, and you need to recognize those people are wrong.
Okay.
They are absolutely wrong. God designed marriage relationships for there to be absolute physical arousal and attraction. Read Song of Solomon.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
If you read this is God's design. So there needs to be that desire, that attraction, that physical component there. But that alone does not make somebody qualified. They have to have the character traits as well. But without it, they are disqualified.
Okay. So just be real honest with yourself.
Yep.
Okay. So what about, a lot of people will talk about soulmates. Does everybody have one soulmate?
I do not believe that is the case. I think that's fantasy.
Okay.
People who have this idea, there's one soulmate out in the world, I've got to find them. They're living in some childhood fantasy type Prince Charming type
right.
world and looking for the one supernatural, non-realistic person they put on some pedestal in some way. And ultimately, even when they find that supernatural super person who's my one and only soulmate, because that person is actually human and does have foibles, will eventually fall off the pedestal and be very disappointed and think they got deceived. So this type of an approach tells me that the person who has that approach is not actually ready to engage in healthy relating yet.
Right.
So they need some more work to do.
Right.
And so, no, I think in the world of 7 billion people, there are multiple individual people that we can actually be very compatible with and have life intimacies and real love with.
So can you have two very healthy people in a bad marriage or I'm sorry, and I shouldn't say a bad marriage, be life partners?
So can there be two really healthy people who are not a good match for each other? That's the question I think you're trying to ask.
Right.
Yeah, and yes. So then you need to recognize this. And this is important for when you're in the dating process. Many people date and they stay in relationships because they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of hurting someone's feeling. But you need to come to the point where you actually say, hey, you know what? There could be two mature, healthy people that just are not well matched for each other. We have different interests. Somebody's extroverted, somebody's introverted, somebody's a bookworm, somebody likes to go, do outdoor high impact sports. They just don't match up well, but in their own spheres, they're very mature, healthy people. They're just not a good match. That's okay. You need to allow for that. So when you're dating someone, one of the two of you may come to the point that they realize at some point in the dating process that you're not well matched, you're not the one for me, and they communicate that to you. You don't get your feelings hurt. You don't go, oh, I can try harder. You go, thanks for letting me know, okay? And it doesn't mean necessarily there's some pathology in you've got to go fix.
Right.
It's okay. We're not matched. I'll find somebody else.
Right. How about family and friends? Where does their opinion matter in finding a partner?
So that's a great question. When it comes to family and friends, you have to first have an assessment of the maturity, wisdom, quality, and motives of the family and friends.
Okay.
Okay?
That's a big deal.
You have to really have some assessment of the source first.
Okay.
Now, if you have mature family, wise family, they've demonstrated history of great discernment, insight. They've demonstrated they really care for you. They make decisions that are in your best interest. They're not manipulative. They're not controlling. They're not jealous types, okay? They're really mature people. Then their opinions actually can carry great weight. And the way that you use their opinion is that they stand in different places and they observe from different angles, and they can give you information that you can't necessarily see direct on.
Okay.
It'd be like looking at somebody face on and somebody standing behind them and they're seeing from a different perspective. You haven't had that perspective. And so that's good information that you would then internalize, assess, incorporate into your own understanding with all the data points you have that they don't have because they're not standing in your position.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Doesn't mean that their perspectives are necessarily better than yours. They're just different than yours.
Right.
But they may be valuable perspectives depending on what they're telling you. And you need to incorporate those into your understanding and give them the proper weight and then ultimately make your own decision on that. On the other hand, if there are people that you know are petty, small-minded, jealous, envious, then you would give very little weight to their opinion, but you might allow even a small-minded, petty person can still observe something that's real. I observed your boyfriend going into a hotel room with another woman.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, and they're petty and small. Okay, you don't take it on the word of the woman, but then you investigate to see if there's evidence to support what was said.
Right.
And you then base a decision based on the evidence, okay?
Right.
So that's where family opinions of the person come in, that it helps you maybe evaluate perspectives about the person you might not have seen on your own.
Okay, very good. That's a great answer. So what about if you find yourself unmarried, but you have children from a previous marriage and you're entering into a new relationship?
So it's really short time to try to answer a really difficult question. But it's important that the children not be introduced to the prospective new person until you've come to a point that you realize they could spend time with them. And then there needs to be some time of the two of them together to make sure that they all get along. And we're talking children that are still minor children. Okay. We're not talking about adult children. Okay. These are minor children.
Yes.
The minor children need to be protected from the potential loss and exposure. And then ultimately, the person has to get along with the minor children, or they're not qualified.
Okay, and not qualified. Boom, they're
Yep,
out.
that's
Okay,
it.
all right, great answer. I'm sorry we went so quick. Next show, we're going to be talking about depression, and I know that you have a lot of information about depression and treatments and things like that. So we hope that you join us for our next Dr. Tim Jennings show. And if you have any questions or you want to get more information, please go to timjenningsmd.com. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.